All right, we're here for the first Recovery First podcast brought to you by the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association, and we are here live from Askham Studios in Greenville, South Carolina. All right, I'm your host, Mike Todd. I'm also founder of Freedom Recovery Center of Greenville. Our Recovery First program helps homeless men in our community access services such as treatment, recovery services, and permanent housing, and we've been doing that since 2011. Just a few things that have kind of caught my attention nationally. First and foremost, Nikki Sixx from the band Motley Crue. What a great band, right? He actually died, right? But he has celebrated 20 years. I mean, what a story of recovery. Just an amazing story, Nikki Sixx. And then, I caught something in Rhode Island. It looks like Rhode Island will be the first in the nation to pilot drug injection sites. We didn't think that would happen in South Carolina, but I was kind of surprised to see Rhode Island.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being, from the north, and then moving to Virginia and then moving to, now South Carolina, it's totally like you would think like a state like, New York, California, Pennsylvania, Oregon. Yeah. Like those would be the ones that would be doing it,
Yeah. And we knew it wouldn't be South Carolina.
Nah.
But we are as advocates in South Carolina working very hard to get things like syringe exchange and things like that. I mean, we know it's going to be a push. We know that, but we're working. I mean, there was a bill, but it looks like it's kind of stuck in a committee. But we've got some wonderful harm reduction folks and so forth that are trying to educate people all over the state. But I'm like you, I was surprised to see Rhode Island. Another thing in the news, lawmakers in Pennsylvania renew a call for stronger addiction treatment and oversight as two Pennsylvania providers are charged, face criminal charges for allegedly bribing recovery homes for referrals and forcing patients into substandard care. That happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But when I read that substandard care, it makes me think about the 800 line that we've been working so diligently on here in South Carolina. And, so this 1-800 recovery housing line, and you've worked with us on this too, Todd, but so we have an 800 line. So if somebody is in substandard care or they're getting exploited or abused, they're able to call that 800 line and they get connected with a peer support specialist. And that peer support specialist helps them with their situation. Now, if it's a situation where laws are being broken and they've been harmed or abused, we're creating these relationships with like law enforcement and making them aware that we have this 800 line and that the peer support specialists are connecting with law enforcement. For instance, Sheriff Hobart Lewis. We've talked to him about it here, and we're going to continue to work on it. I mean, it's still a work in progress. It's still pretty new, but we've had some calls. And I'll tell you this, it looks like we may be getting a conviction as a result of that 800 line and someone being abused in a recovery home or recovery housing program. So we're going to continue to work on that.
Yeah, and just, the other thing with the South Carolina Recovery Housing Support Hotline, that number is 1-800-396-7919. That's something that you and I have been kind of working with behind, to get going. So it's definitely, a good, just a good avenue to try and, and reach out if you're, and it's not like you've said privately, it's not a number to call just to be, to report everything,
Right. Right.
I mean, can you give some examples with that hotline, with obviously with discretion, but
yeah, I mean, if it's substandard care, maybe, we know that there's some exploitation going on. There have been, unfortunately, instances, of abuse and so forth. We're making headway with it. It's going to take some time. I talked to Representative Fry today. As a matter of fact, you were there, and of course he sits on the opioid subcommittee, and we kind of filled him in about it, and he was like, "This is great," because a lot of times, let's face it, people are in these housing situations, and things are happening that aren't right, and they're afraid to say anything for fear of just being put out and not having anywhere else to go. And so what we want to do is educate the public that, look, you have trained peer support people behind you, you have law enforcement behind you. It's going to take some time. There's not a whole lot of calls coming in, but I think as we start to get that number out there and educate the public and, educate people in recovery and these folks that are going into these programs, I think it's going to be a good thing, and it's making some progress. So, and we'll do some more. We'll have Tina from Favor Greenville. Tina Harris. She's working with us. She's actually a peer support specialist with that 800 line. So we'll have her on the show and we'll talk about it. Kind of moving along, but August is Overdose Awareness Month. Greenville has a walk planned. I did talk to Chris Stepp. August 27th from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll be walking from Pizza Bergamo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Bergamo. To Falls Park. Last year was our first walk. And man, it was surprising. We had about 150 people that showed up for that walk, and they brought pictures of loved ones that they had lost an accidental overdose. And of course I was there with my bullhorn.
I remember I definitely remember the photos with the bullhorn. So.
Well, yeah, I get excited, and especially with a bullhorn, it's pretty scary. I'm enthusiastic, and everybody thinks it's fun. But yeah, I'll be there with my bullhorn. But I did talk to Chris Stepp. His family actually started that. They unfortunately lost his daughter, Jessie Mae. She's a beautiful young lady, and he lost her to accidental overdose. And we definitely want to have him on the show, Todd, because he just does some amazing stuff with harm reduction and, driving the bus around and getting the locks on out. And I think he calls that bus the Jessie Mae bus, as a matter of fact.
Well, and for me, like, these are, I'm 3 weeks new to Greenville now. This is my third week here.
Yeah, welcome, man.
So, I mean, just to see the initiatives that, or hear about the initiatives that are going on, those are definitely great things. I mean, I've seen in other areas, like I know where we were from in Pennsylvania, there was a bus that had started up there, and it was for actually Vivitrol.
Yeah.
So they were doing MATs, through the bus. So that's, those are pretty progressive steps. It's kind of like that, get out and, think outside the box. How can we make a difference? So, I mean, it's good to see those things, and it's good to see those things here.
It really is. And we have an amazing community here, but I wanted to mention this kind of on the national level, since we're still talking about the national level. So we're all excited about that September 24th to 27th, Mobilize Recovery in Las Vegas. Last year, it was virtual because of COVID. It started in 2019. Just a little history about it. It started in 2019. Ryan Hampton started it. He wrote a book. He also used to work for the Clintons and for President Clinton. But they started it with a Facebook grant with about 150 of us. And I had the opportunity to go to that in 2019. And of course, we had it virtual last year, but we're back. We get to see each other again. But it's amazing. It's really amazing to see how this thing has grown. And of course, it's Mobilized Recovery, but we spun it into the Recovery Advocacy Project, which is a national addiction and recovery advocacy project. And we have people in every state now. We even have some folks here in South Carolina.
Well, and I know that I get the email alerts about, petitioning the governor, so if someone were to want to get, how do they go about getting involved? I know I get email alerts because I've signed up through a few petitions.
Sure.
But if they want to either, whether it's on a low level like that, just giving a signature, or whether it's actually, through trying to do some boots on the ground work, how does somebody go about doing that?
If you can get them connected to Recovery Advocacy Project website, they can go on there and get signed up, and then we'll get them with their prospective state. We'll contact them. We meet about every week for about an hour. Aaron Kacharski kind of heads that up. Nicole Chris is involved with it. And, we have some initiatives here that we're working on, because each state really has different initiatives. And some of the things one of the things we're working on is the syringe exchange in South Carolina, to try to continue to push that through legislation. We know that it's going to be a tough push, but and the other thing is, we know that there's going to be coming down from the Biden administration, that there is going to be some dedicated funding coming to recovery services. Recovery services meaning recovery community organizations, recovery housing, collegiate recovery. So one of the things that we've been doing in South Carolina is we've been sending a petition to the governor, and we're also working with our single state agency, which is DAODAS, the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, to make sure that those services get to those dedicated recovery services. So exciting, because that's never happened in our country. There's never been just, set aside money for recovery services only. So, yeah, we're excited about that. Yeah, and back to September, okay? We're in September as we go out of the overdose awareness. Of course, we go into Recovery Month. And we are planning a recovery walk here in Greenville. It's going to be on Swamp Rabbit Trail. I don't have a date for that, but Nate Tate, our recovery coordinator at Greenville Tech, is kind of working on that. So I talked to him, and he said he was going to let me know a little bit more about it.
And you said this is your first recovery event in South Carolina?
This is our first recovery event in Greenville.
As far as organized with Freedom, or?
It's going to be organized by the recovery community. It's really around the Greenville Tech is going to be involved with it. Phoenix Center, which is our county agency, they're involved with it. So Favor Greenville, I'm sure we'll be involved with it. Of course, we'll be involved with it. But yes, we're going to have an event here in Greenville for Recovery Month.
Well, that's good. I mean, like I said, with that right around the corner, we're almost to August now.
Yeah.
September will be here before you know it. So it's always good that, we have these events out there because a lot of family members, are affected. And I think that this helps put faces to what is so quietly kept in the closet because there's so much stigma.
Yeah.
Not just for the addict who's in recovery, like yourself and myself.
Sure.
We both have multiple years clean, but at the same end, the family members is extended from them. Obviously, we're on the replay. We're hoping that more family members will have this content will be readily available. So, what do you say to those family members that may not be watching live because we are simulcast live on Facebook? But at the same time, like what for them? Like obviously we want them to come out. What do you say to those family members? This is a personal note. Like this is not that you're not alone. That kind. So
I would say that this is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, and that you're not alone. And I think we were talking about recovery community organizations earlier. We mentioned them, and we have a fantastic recovery community organization here in Greenville. It's called Favor Greenville. And one of the things they have at Favor Greenville, one of the things that they do very, very well is they have family peer support. Okay. If you have a loved one that is struggling and you just don't know what to do, there are people there that will help you. And as a matter of fact, I want to speak for the state. It's really all over the state. I mean, Favor Grand Strand, Nicole Chris, Midlands Recovery Center out of Columbia, Bobby Brazel. There are people that are here for you, and that want to help you and want to support you, because that's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. I mean, I know my wife and I struggle with that. I mean, we have, a child that struggles with that, and we have support.
Well, and also, it's so important that people know,
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's a fine line because you definitely want to put it out there. You want people you want to spread the word, but it's almost like a fine line that you walk because you almost feel like on one hand, it's almost exploitative, like you're exploiting. But realistically, I think that there's connectivity, there's community there. And I think that's what people need to know, that, they're not alone, whether it's the addict or they're still suffering, or whether it's the family member, because they are an extension of the disease of addiction as well. Not in the sense of that they're either hooked or whatever, or addicted, but at the same time, like they have to go through real life stuff just as much as, the people that are, actively using and actively in recovery. So, there's a whole community there that I think gets overlooked whenever it comes to family support. So it's great to hear like the connections with Favor of Greenville, with the other organizations that you mentioned, that there's always avenues to reach out to.
They do a fantastic job. And, we talk about, it's a hot topic, patient brokering and things like that. We talk about that, like, where do you get help? Where do you send your loved one? And that's the thing, that locally we have people here that are trained, that have gone out and actually vetted these treatment centers and these programs to make sure that your loved one, doesn't end up in, we don't have to fly out to Florida or California, that kind of thing. I mean, we have, and that's what I was going to get to. I mean, Greenville is really, it really is. We have a wonderful recovery community here in Greenville, with just so many great advocates and programs, and we're going to showcase them here. That's what we want to do with this podcast. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for for months, and you said, hey, I'm moving to South Carolina, and we've been talking about this for a while, and I've been telling you, what an amazing community we've got here in Greenville, and everything from our recovery community organizations to our recovery housing to our collegiate recovery to all the peer support specialists. I mean, I would say Greenville's a recovery community. I really would.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that there's actually the key word there, is community.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be a lot of infighting with organizations here.
Mm-mm.
It seems to be that, if one organization is benefiting, they're all benefiting.
Yeah.
There seems to be unity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need more of on a national scale. It's far too often, I've just celebrated over 4 years, sober.
Congratulations.
In February. So
yeah.
It's a little late.
That's all right, man. But I remember.
But I know, from sober living in sober living.
Yeah.
Living in different environments, of the other organizations, and you always know that there's like that back and forth, And so at least that seemed to be the norm here. And that's what really struck Kelly and I whenever we came here to Greenville, was that there is actually unity within the recovery community here. And and that was the number one thing, Kelly was on board, not that I wasn't on board, but Kelly was on board before I was, and
nice.
And she's the one that really pushed this. And so, we're definitely grateful to be in an environment where we don't have to, necessarily, you don't have to worry about daggers in your back, and I'm not saying that about other organizations that I've been at. I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying, as an example, it's beautiful to see how unified, how unified it is here in Greenville. So, I mean, and I think that goes back to the importance of what you were saying about local treatment. If you're a provider, if you're a recovery community organization, there is, at least in my mind, I think that, you should have those easily accessible tools, 30, 45, an hour away within your own state for resources. I mean, too often people are left behind. They're brought from another state. They're kicked out. They have nowhere to go. They contribute to unemployment problems. They contribute to other kinds of social and economical problems that come along with that. And it's too often the states are being dumped with these people that cannot go, somewhere because of their addiction, but yet it's the state that they get transferred to's problem.
Yeah, you know what? Absolutely, and that's another thing. I mean, is sending people states away, right? That's getting to be a problem. It's almost like, shuffling people around. I mean, I'm one that, and I learned this from my friend, Rich Jones. I have to say this, a guy taught me a lot. Rich was with Favor Greenville, and he's moved on. He's with a healthcare company, and he's going out to build a rocket or whatever. I don't know doing what Rich does. But, one of the things we talked about was all treatment and recovery is local. Now I understand in some cases, every case is different, but, and I'll have to say this, I'm so proud of this community because we really do have everything here. And we've even got, working with what we do with Freedom Recovery Center, where let's give you an example. Okay. A guy's on the street, living in a tent, okay? And he needs treatment. There are services that are accessible through our county agency, our wonderful county agency, Phoenix Center, okay? But it might as well be on Mars, because if you have nowhere to live and you have no transportation, you can't get to those services. So that's where we come in. Freedom Recovery Center, we provide that bridge We provide that transportation. We provide that housing, and we even provide the nutrition while they are in, say, intensive outpatient with Phoenix Center. So they're getting everything they need. They have a caseworker and everything else. And, so a person that will never access treatment and recovery has that opportunity here in Greenville, South Carolina.
Well, I know, and that's something, for Kelly, that stuck out to her right there. The first time we toured, the facility, first of all, you didn't give it enough credit. You made it sound like a dump. And it's far from a dump. It's, listen, as somebody.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
As somebody who's been in sober living, who's been in recovery housing before, I've seen my share of, not so grand places to be at, and realistically, I mean, Freedom Recovery Center actually is it's a gem in itself. And that's the number one thing that got Kelly from the get-go was, the focus on recovery first.
Yes.
So, I mean, that 6 to 8 to,
12 weeks. 12 weeks. If they go through the Phoenix Center, the county program, it's 12 weeks. For instance, we just had a guy, that went through the 12 weeks. He's got a job at Walmart. As a matter of fact, you ran into him the other day with your shirt on.
Yeah. And,
I mean, that's amazing because here's the thing, Todd, really, given his situation, he would have never had a chance, based on where he was at. Because he was absolutely homeless. But we could take him in, so he has somewhere to live, he has food, he has that peer recovery support there, he has, everything that he needs to succeed. So he goes through his 8 weeks, and then the other 4 weeks are they go in once a week. So after his 8 weeks, he was able to start looking for a job. Well, and he landed the job at Walmart. Well, it's just an example. It's amazing.
Well, and that's something, when you first get clean, you first get sober, after about, 3 weeks, you're like, oh, I got to get back to work. You have to get back to your life. And, it didn't take you screwing your life up, in one day. It doesn't take getting your life back one day either. And I think that once you get to that 9 to 12 month period, then your brain starts to really heal. Then your brain really starts to focus. And I think that, having that first 12 weeks right there to focus primarily just on the recovery itself, that is, because a lot of places, just to be able to do that, number one, is good. Even though you have the idle time, but you can utilize that idle time. And then if you're really serious about getting yourself straight, then you'll utilize that idle time. Rather than bitch about the idle time. If you're going to sit there and complain, then realistically, mentally, where are you at? You gotta cross that hump. That's what I'm trying to get at.
And to add to that, I mean, you take someone who's maybe 30, just an example, 35 years old, and unfortunately, they've been in substance use disorder since they were 15, and they've had a needle in their arm or whatever it may be, and we can't just take them to, say, a detox or whatever, and for a few days or even 30 days in some sense, and just say, okay, it's time for you to go back into society and work and start paying your way and this, that, and the other. So we're very fortunate. And it really gives someone an opportunity to really do nothing. That's why we call it Recovery First, to do nothing but focus in on their treatment and their recovery and that foundation. They need that foundation because so many times I saw this. I've been doing this for a little while. I mean, like I said, since 2011. And one of the things that really started getting to me was watching people go detox for a few days and then getting sent somewhere and saying, all right, well, you got to get a job and you got to go to work and you got to, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, I mean, that is a lot, to put on someone very, very, very early in recovery. So we do have them for that 6 weeks to 12 weeks, according to how everything looks to them, to focus in, solely on that. And then once they finish their treatment, once they have that foundation in recovery, maybe they've got a sponsor, maybe they've got a recovery coach, maybe they've got a peer support specialist. They've got someone walking with them. And now we can start talking about a job. Now we can start talking about, permanent housing and things of that nature. So, yeah, you're right. And that's why we call it the Recovery First, program. So, I did want to mention, as we're winding down, I wanted to mention another initiative that's going on in South Carolina. And that's, we're in the process of forming the South Carolina Recovery Coalition. And really excited about that. I'm excited all the time anyway, though. Pumped up about it and I'll tell you why. Because it's bringing a recovery voice to our issues and our policies. One of the things that, one of the issues that we've had through the years is people in recovery have not had a seat at the table. And we are forming that seat at the table. And of course, it's kind of in the beginning stages, and we're getting it formed. And I look forward to having some of the folks that are on that coalition on the show, because it's broad based. There's housing is represented. Recovery community organizations are represented. Collegiate recovery is represented. High school recovery, the Courage Center is being represented. They're looking at doing some high school recovery here. So, I'm really excited. Man, it's kind of like Bob Dylan. The times they are changing, right? And they need to.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned to me before that things are, the stigma is definitely a larger issue, here in South Carolina. And so I think that, I've ran into it already, just a little bit.
Okay.
We had so our house, we actually had, we had someone come in and they were talking about like Narcan, shouldn't be giving those junkies Narcan.
Yeah.
I can't get my EpiPen for free. They shouldn't get Narcan for free. So maybe with what you're saying there, like the high school recovery, without getting political, it seems like, as the younger generations are taught differently, things obviously 10, 15, 20 years down the road start to swing. And so, and you can see that politically, you can see that, not just politically, just in basic morals and beliefs. And, over the years, and that can be, in this case, that can be a good thing. If we can help start creating through projects like that with the local communities, just partnering together. Once again, it comes back to that unity, that unifying, and so, obviously with the gentleman, I was like, well, and it gave a door to open up, and I was able to, to bring my perspective, and so it's the little conversations, like that they make a difference. And so, I forget who had said it, but you can't eat an elephant in one bite.
That's right.
So you got to eat it one bite at a time.
Yeah. But you know what, Todd, we're making progress. And, sometimes when I talk to people like that and they're like, why should we Narcan somebody over and over again? They're making bad decisions. And I kind of compare it to, okay, well, what about the guy that's had several heart attacks that just won't quit eating bad, right? and has multiple heart attacks. I mean, we want them to stay alive. We have AEDs, right? I mean, so it's the same thing. The thing is it's a treatable and preventable disease, but unfortunately, we still see it as a moral failure, and we see that all the way across the board. But I do think things are changing. I mean, and I'm going to say this. And back to the bus. Okay, I know we're getting ready, but back to the bus. I never thought in a million years that we would have a bus. And shout out to Challenges Inc. And some of these other, and Phoenix Center and in the community in general for getting this out. But I mean, we've got a bus going around giving out naloxone and fresh syringes. And I mean, and even when you start looking at giving out fresh syringes, okay, it cuts down dramatically on HIV, on hepatitis C. We have an HIV spike in South Carolina right now. I mean, we could literally get federal money right now for syringe exchange. We have to pass the legislation. Also, when we're out here actually meeting drug users with dignity, they're 5 times more likely to seek treatment and recovery. 5 times more likely. I am here today because someone said, I was standing out in a parking lot. I was getting ready to get back into my car. And my plan was I just didn't see any other way out but to die. That was my plan. And the guy said, where are you going? And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And he says, why don't I just walk in with you? And it changed my life. Because that one moment, that guy looked at me and said, I will walk with you. And you know what? He became my sponsor. And, it's just, we have to realize that these folks have not really had human contact in that way and for so long. So when somebody pulls up in a bus, when Chris Stepp pulls up in a bus, loaded down with naloxone and cleans syringes and cleans up their sores, you know what I mean? When he pulls up and does that and has that human contact with them, they haven't had that and God knows when. And and the thing is, they know him. Sometimes I'll be, it's funny. I'll be out, and because I give it out of my trunk. I give it out when I live around West Greenville, and I give it out of my trunk, and they'll ask, "Hey, do you know where Chris is?" Hey, they know him by first name. It's amazing. So yeah, just an amazing community we have. I can't say enough about it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud that we can showcase it and talk about it and do it in this forum.
Well, and piggybacking off of that, what is your future for the podcast? What do you where do you see with the future of the podcast?
Having some folks on here, all these folks, these wonderful advocates and these programs here that are working so hard with this issue, with the opioid crisis, with the addiction crisis, having them on, because I feel like a lot of times they're not appreciated. And man, I just want to have them on here and talk with them and let them know that they're appreciated and to hear what they have to say. They need to be heard. A lot of them are overworked and definitely underpaid. I mean, and a lot of them are just volunteers, all the way across the state, all the way across the country. I hope that we can, just have them on, because I've just met I'll tell you, I've just got some amazing friends. I really do.
Well, and I think, a lot of those connections, also come back to the, like for people that only know of Freedom Recovery Center here in Greenville, that follow, this organization, those connections, through Mobilize Recovery,
Yeah.
That you have mentioned earlier, that's, those are huge and important. And, and I think that's why using your voice matters.
Yeah.
Reaching out matters because it helps to embolden people. And so with us doing the podcast like
Yeah.
this, now obviously, I mean, this being the first one, we're not going to have a remote guest on this one.
No.
But moving forward, I think having that flexibility there to have local leaders, local people of all genres, and I would even say to like controversially have opposition on, because like this isn't freedom of a freedom of being able to use our voice if we're not listening to other people as well, and we can all agree to disagree collectively and dignified.
That's right.
And I think that trying to get not just hear one side of the fence, getting the different perspectives matter, because maybe that different perspective is what will help make a difference.
And I'll add to that, Todd. And I don't know what we got on time, but I'll add to that. I can remember, how I was such an, I just did not understand medically assisted treatment. I grew up in an anonymous program. I didn't know anything else. And I can remember having just some heated conversations with people like Rich Jones and Nate Tate, Mark Burrows, the guy from Challenges Inc. who does the harm reduction here. And it took time. It took a lot of time, but I came around and I just came to the conclusion that, this is a population, and this is something that I've learned from Mobilize Recovery. One of the main things that I've learned from Mobilize Recovery that's really stuck to me, and we've had some really good workshops, is that when we are advocating, it is not advocacy unless we're bringing everyone with us. If we're not bringing one group, right? If we're leaving anybody out, it's not advocacy. It's not advocacy. It becomes some kind of other interest. Okay? Advocacy, we've got to be speaking for everyone. Everyone. And that's one of the things that I've learned. And I'm the old dude there. I got all these young people that are teaching me so many things. And I'm really grateful for them. And tune in at 7 p.m. on Wednesday weekly. We're going to do this, and I think next week we are going to have Chiquisha K. Ellis on. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah, you did at the beginning, but
Yeah.
And then for those that may be tuning in late that are watching the live stream and not listening to the audio portion of this, she's going to be on, and you were talking about the harm reduction, you were talking about the patient broker in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so, her being from Pennsylvania, maybe able to give a little more insight on that.
Yeah.
And what people can look for if they're going to send their loved ones, that being one of the topics.
Absolutely. And she also wrote a book, and I think that one of the things that she really hit home with that book is that I'll let her tell her story. Okay. But anyone can suffer from substance use disorder because, she was a school teacher. Both of her parents were ministers. She was in church every Sunday. If there's anybody that did everything right, it was her, and she, like I said, I'll let her tell her story, and I just think the world of her. And, 7 p.m. You can also follow us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook group, Freedom Recovery Center Facebook group.
And as far as social media, we're also on Instagram. So we're on Instagram. We have the Facebook page and the Facebook group. You can follow Freedom Recovery Center at any of the Freedom Recovery Center of Greenville at any of those those locations. This is being, like I said, we're going to do it live every Wednesday at 7:00. So, we want to make sure we're doing things right. We don't want to just throw things together. We want to be organized and be meticulous about how we present, the beauty of recovery.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to bring this to people in a haphazard manner, And so, I mean, if I'm fully invested in my recovery, I'm fully invested in every other avenue of my life, and and I know that that's how we're serious about bringing this and help make changes. So
yeah, I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to everybody coming on and stay tuned. More will be revealed.
I believe that Freedom Recovery Center is a great asset to the community. It gives the residents different opportunities, different pathways to find their recovery. They act as if they're a family. They eat together. They have meetings. They love on each other. They're not just strangers that come and go. And I think that's very important for growth. You don't want to feel like you're alone. You can have people there who know what you're going through. They've been through the same thing. It's easier if you have camaraderie.
I think we get these guys out of survival mode. When someone is in survival mode, they're not able to focus in on their treatment and recovery. But if they don't have to worry for a period of time about where they're going to live, where they're going to take a shower, where they're going to eat, if we can get them past all that, then they can focus in on getting better.
I feel like being here, I feel like I'm a part of something greater than myself, a family. I'm safe. I feel like I can actually achieve long-term sobriety by living here.
We're able to provide actual treatment with housing and nutrition and everything else. And as we utilize our partnerships in the community, we're literally able to take a man to work with him for 6 to 8 weeks, for him to get pretty much the same services that you would have to fly somewhere to get. And we can get that done for about $2,400 for 6 to 8 weeks.
I'm feeling better every day. I mean, I've never been surrounded with such a good group of people. Like, they encourage me to do better and go to meetings and get a sponsor and work some steps. I've never in my life experienced that. I mean, we actually go in there and cook meals together and clean together. I mean, it's like a family. I mean, I'm comfortable here. I feel like I can be myself, and I just couldn't ask for a better place to be.
So one partnership that we have is with Phoenix Center, and that's our county authority. And obviously the services there are free to the community. But being able to add in the housing aspect, the nutrition aspect, and then bring in the recovery services, they get everything they need. They can come in and focus completely on recovery. If there's one thing that you could say is different about Freedom Recovery Center, what would it be?
It would most definitely be recovery first.